They fined her $400 for not clearing storm debris in 24 hours. Post-hurricane chaos meets HOA cruelty. In the storm-prone neighborhood of Bayview Shores, Louisiana, where hurricanes were a recurring threat, 42-year-old Emily Nguyen had built a resilient life. A single mother and nurse, Emily lived with her 10-year-old son Liam in a modest home surrounded by large oaks. After Hurricane Clara struck in late June 2025, leaving a trail of destruction, a massive tree in Emily's backyard was uprooted, crashing into her fence and scattering branches across the yard. The storm had knocked out power and flooded streets, overwhelming local cleanup crews. But Emily prioritized her son's safety, staying indoors as emergency services worked to restore order. She planned to clear the debris once help arrived or the weather stabilized. But the Bayview Shores Homeowners Association saw the mess as a violation. The HOA president, 64-year-old Harold Grayson, a retired bank manager with a rigid sense of order, had tasked his team with enforcing rules even during emergencies. After the hurricane, he received complaints from neighbors about the unsightly debris, despite the widespread damage across the area. Harold pointed to a bylaw that stated, all property debris must be cleared within 24 hours of a storm to maintain community standards, with a $400 fine per violation. It was a rule rarely tested post-disaster. Other yards had debris for days, but Harold insisted on strict compliance, viewing Emily's delay as a breach of his authority. In late June 2025, just 24 hours after Hurricane Clara passed, an HOA inspector visited Emily's home while she was at work, assessing the fallen tree and scattered branches. Without contacting her, they slapped a $400 fine notice on her door for failure to clear debris. The letter also warned of an $800 fine for a second violation if the yard wasn't cleaned by the next day. Emily returned home exhausted from a double shift at the hospital to find the notice amidst the chaos. Power was still out, and Liam was playing with a flashlight. She called Harold, explaining the storm's severity, her work schedule, and the lack of municipal cleanup support. She offered to hire help as soon as possible, but Harold was unyielding. The rule is 24 hours, he snapped. Pay the fine or face more. Emily, overwhelmed, began clearing what she could with Liam's help, but the task was daunting with no equipment. The next morning, while Emily rested after her shift, Harold sent an HOA crew to inspect again, this time with a photographer to document the violation. They found some branches moved but the tree still down, deeming it insufficient, and issued a second $800 fine. A neighbor, 30-year-old carpenter Javier Morales, filmed the crew, capturing the inspector's smug demeanor, the fines piling up, and Emily's yard still littered with storm wreckage. He posted the video on X with the caption, HOA fined this mom $400 for not clearing storm debris in 24 hours. Post-hurricane, Sharker's storm fine. The video went viral, gaining 14 million views in 48 hours, with the hashtag trending nationwide. People were outraged, calling the HOA's actions inhumane and unreasonable. Local news stations in New Orleans covered the story, interviewing a weary Emily who said, I was saving lives. They fined me for surviving. The reporter also spoke to a disaster relief expert who noted the impracticality of the 24-hour rule during a hurricane recovery. The community rallied behind Emily. Javier organized a protest outside the HOA office, where dozens of residents gathered with shovels and signs reading, "Storms don't wait," and "Stop HOA cruelty." Some brought debris from their own yards, dumping it symbolically at the office door. A GoFundMe page to help Emily pay the fines and clear her yard raised $8,000 in a week, with donors leaving messages like, "This is heartless," and "Justice for Emily." The story caught national attention, with outlets like NBC and the Times-Picayune running headlines like, HOA fines mom $400 for storm debris, sparks outrage, and Louisiana family fights HOA after hurricane penalty. Emily decided to sue the HOA, determined to challenge their harsh enforcement and protect others in crisis. She hired a lawyer, Rachel Patel, who argued that the HOA's actions constituted harassment, financial distress, and an unreasonable burden, especially during a state of emergency. and that the debris rule was selectively enforced as other yards remained uncleared. The lawsuit sought $12,000 in damages, the removal of the fines, and an injunction to suspend the rule post-disaster. The case drew a crowd to the courtroom, with supporters holding branches in solidarity. Rachel presented Javier's video as evidence, along with weather reports showing the storm's impact. Emily took the stand, her voice steady but emotional. "I was helping my community heal. They punished me for it." Harold, representing the HOA, showed no remorse. He claimed the debris rule was meant to preserve property values and that Emily's delay justified the fines. He produced the bylaw and argued that the HOA had the right to enforce its rules, even after a hurricane. The judge, a strict interpreter of HOA contracts, ruled in favor of the HOA, stating that the bylaw was legally binding and Emily had been warned. The fines were upheld, totaling $1,200, and Emily was ordered to pay the HOA's legal fees, an additional $4,000 burden. Emily left the courtroom, holding Liam's hand, the weight of the fines crushing her spirit. The ruling sparked outrage online, with number signs storm fine trending again, this time with calls for disaster relief protections against HOAs. Homeowner advocacy groups and emergency management experts condemned the decision, arguing that it penalized resilience. In Bayview Shores, Harold remained HOA president, issuing new rules reducing the debris clearance time to 12 hours post-storm, with fines increased to $800. Emily used the GoFundMe money to hire a crew to remove the tree, but the financial strain lingered. She cut back on Liam's activities to cover costs. Bayview Shores, once a place of community support, turned into a battleground, with residents fearing the HOA's ruthless enforcement even in crisis.